you are okay. So let me start again. Uh, Good evening, everyone. So, as I just wanted to cover function this evening. So, since function is very important topic in Python, what exactly this function? Why should we write a function? So, first we'll cover what is that function, and why there is a need for the function. So, for example, if you are writing a small code to add a list of numbers, like assume that like there may be around 10 numbers are there. So something that like it will start from 1 2 and up to 10. So if you wanted to add these numbers, then how should you write? Actually, you are creating a list, and then you are making sum is equal to 0, and then you are writing for loop and I. So using in, then what you will be doing, that whatever the list you are trying to give, then this is a colon, then you will be saying sum is equal to sum plus I. So this is how you will be writing it actually. So now this is fine because you have written once and this is done. But if we have a program, bigger program, then what is that in that actually? Like initially, like somebody sends a list, the list has small number, then you will be doing sum. Then after sometimes after certain other set of instruction, again you have another list, somebody sends another list. So if without a function, then what you have to do, you have to write the same code here, again you have to repeat that code here, again you have to repeat that code here, again you have to, it's like why should we write 1 time, 2 times, 3 times and 4 times, multiple times? So unnecessary thing, correct? So to avoid this actually, there is something called a function. So we can create some kind of a functions, and then we will be using that function repeatedly. So what is that function? How should we create that function? So in Python, so I hope you are able to see my screen, correct? So in Python, the way the function has to be defined is def. So the name of the function, and in the bracket there is arguments. There is list of elements. So def is the keyword which will say definition for the function. So this is the name of the function. It can be anything. It is user defined function. You can give any number, any name, whatever you want. So the nomenclature is same as the way you can give the nomenclature, means like how you should be giving the name for function is same as identifier, the way you are giving the name for identifier, but it should be meaningful. Meaningful means like what this function does. So something similar to that you should be giving name. Like if a function is trying to do square a number, then square you should be giving. If the function is trying to find a prime number, then you should be prime as a function name. So much like you should give a meaningful name, but you can give, you have options to give whatever the name you want. That is a definition and your name. And this is argument, means like what are the information you wanted to pass to the function, what are the values you wanted to pass to the function. And within that, like if you see here, actually this is triple quote, and then there is a triple quote. So what is this triple quote? And this triple quote is actually whatever, like, so I said no in comment, single line comment and multi-line comment. So here, whatever in this function, whatever this in function, if you are whatever you are trying to do, this triple quote under this triple quotes, actually this is called documentation string. This is called documentation string, and this will be the information. Instead of writing the about this, like commenting about this function above the function, instead of that, like you can write within this function, so that you can access this. Actually there is a method to access this comment, means like programmatically you can access. So if you are writing above this, actually like user reading this code can get into. So this is optional. So this is optional. This is not part of the function syntax actually. So this is optional. Def function name, arguments, and colon, and number of lines. So whatever the function performs, like it may be, if you are square, then squaring that number or whatever it may be. So this is this line 1, line 2, it may be any number of lines or one line, whatever it may be. Then finally you see here actually the return and the value, whatever it will be. So if it has to return something after computation, if you are trying to compute the square, then return the square value. So return, and return is also optional. So it is not that like it should be always there. So it can be there, it may not be there actually. So like this also documentation string is like optional. So this is also optional. It may be there, it may not be there, but better thing is you should be there. And another thing you should be noticing here is actually the def, and there is a space. You should be giving the space and then the name and the bracket something. After the colon, there is like indentation is there. So this line 1, line 2 is not starting same the point as a def actually. There is some gap is there. So means like whatever with this indentation, whatever these number of lines are you are writing, statements are writing, that all belongs to this block. What is that block? Function block. So this is the syntax of defining a function. So this is a syntax of defining a function. Why should we define a function? Because instead of repetitively writing that code, we can define a function and then we can use that function to do the performance. Like, so for example, in the same case, like what we should have done here is actually, so I have showed in here, correct, multiple times here. So you one time only, instead of this line, I would have said a def and then I will return that code actually here and return something. The next time I will be calling this function. Again, next time I will be calling this function. I'm not rewriting, only one line. So how should we call that function? That we will discuss in next. So for example, if you are defined a function like this, so or something like def my function, and it takes arguments, 2 arguments, x comma y. There are 2 arguments, and what is this function does? Function does a multiplication, x into y, and that multiplied value will be returning. So this is a function you have defined, and next time whenever you are trying to call the function name, it has to be there, and whatever the parameters like arguments, you are saying that like you are passing that arguments. So this is how you should be calling. So in this case, so whatever the function name and whatever the arguments, so you will be calling, if the function name is m, then you will be calling the m and whatever the arguments here. Function m, whatever the arguments you are here, something like that. So by doing that actually, like, so if the function is of around 8 lines of code, so means like 8 or 9, whatever it may. So here only one line, correct? So m with the arguments. So here also one. It's like you are reducing number of lines code in the code, and also you are increasing code. Readability of the code means like it is very easy to understand. So once if I understand this function very well, what is this function does? So next, understanding this line is very simple, because this is only just calling with some other value. This also is calling another. It's like, so the reading the code also becomes much more easier to understand. So I hope you understood what is the function, what is the function we covered, and syntax of the function, syntax of function, and then how to call that function. Any questions here? What is the function, syntax of the function, and how to call the function? So anybody has any question? Are you able to follow? Okay. See the function and the calling the function. This is a function definition and this is a calling the function. Now there are two things are there. Like, so maybe if you are from C background or some other programming background, so how should we pass an argument? So there are two ways of passing an argument. One is call by value, another by call by reference. What is meant by call by value, call by reference? So if you see this diagram, what I am trying to say is actually, if I am trying to call by value, means like I am trying to send a argument, but when I try to send an argument, whatever is happening here, so in that function I am trying to fill this cup, but that is not reflected here in the outside that function actually. Like, so because this cup only I'm sending here, but it is call by value, I'm not sending the same cup here, so I'm sending the duplicates of that actually. So whatever is happening here is not impacting the outside, whatever the value are passed. But call by reference, if you say, so whatever I'm sending, not the object thing, I'm sending the same object. So same object means like wherever this object is pointing, that same memory address I'm trying to pass here. So whatever is happening here, so if somebody is trying to fill this cup actually, so it is also reflecting outside. If you are not understood that, let me explain that in an example. So for example, if you take this function, what I'm trying to do is actually def value by x. So x is equal to 15. So means like this is a function. So in that function, what I'm trying to do is actually I'm defining a function which takes x, and I'm assigning x is equal to 15 in that function, and then I'm trying to print x, means like whatever the value I'm trying to print here, and then I'm trying to print id x. What is that id x? Means like value or memory address of that x. Actually, this is what I'm trying to do this function. So how should I call that function? I said no value, you have to use that name, correct, to call that. So I'm using here. So before using here, I'm allocating. So x is another variable. I'm allocating x is equal to 10, and then I'm passing here. So it is something that like I'm passing the cup here. So see, if you see here, actually, this is how I'm passing here. So what happens actually when I pass here? So this function is called. So it will go here. Now it will start executing. So now x is equal to 15. Means like x value got changed. So initially, like when I'm passing here, so it is something that like x is equal to 10 and x is stored at that location, something that like x stored at location. This is a memory address where it is stored. But when this function is called, so this will again assign x is equal to 15. So now this x, whatever the 15 value is stored in some other address, actually it is not at the same address. This is some other address. And when you try to print this, actually when here you will be printing this 15 and this address. So you will be printing this 15 and address. And then when you come back, actually when you come back, so after this, actually like you will be doing something that like x and then printing, but this x is this x actually value, not the 15. And this id is equal to which where exactly you are trying to do. But if you are still not able to comfortably understand this, actually let me show with the programmatically how it works actually. So let me go here. Okay. Okay. Okay, now this is what I'm trying to do. So what happens actually? So even though, see the first one, the 15, whatever I'm trying to print here, that is inside the function. So if you want, if you got confused actually, then I will try to print another statement saying that like I am inside the function. If I say I inside the function, so now I'm inside the function. Now I'm trying to print here again another statement. I am outside of the function. So now if you will come to know that like clearly what is happening. So what happens actually? So now I am inside the function, and since inside the function I'm assigning values equal to 15. See x, if I try to print, it is 15 only. So then id is that address, actually address of that where that 15 is stored. And when I come out, actually, so it doesn't retain that value. So this is only local to this function. The scope of this variable values, everything is local to this function and only remembers over there. And when you come out of that, actually like it will remember whatever the value it was stored before that. So when you try to print is actually this one. So this method of calling passing the arguments to the function is called call by value. So call by value means like you, whatever is done in the function is not reflecting outside the function. It will be whatever you done in the function, that value, everything will be only valuable within the function, and it doesn't carry that value outside the function. That is called call by function. So if you still not understood actually how these things works, actually let me show you one more method so you can visually, you can also see. So you can visually see that how things are happening. So let me show that to you. So my screen is visible, correct? Okay. So now what I'm trying to do, so initially I'm here, so I'm assigning x is equal to 10. So x is equal to 10 is assigned. And now what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to call this function. So the function is called, so it came here. So now what I'm trying to, yeah, I am passed this x is equal to 10. I am assigned, so value I have passed is 10. Okay, that is fine. It's like when it came here, the x is still having value 10. So what is happening here? Now x is equal to 15. So this x is 15. So this x is 15, and now I'm trying to print. So I'm trying to print this actually. So though when I say there is no return, so since there is no return, there is none returning. I'm coming here. What is happening actually? Like when I come back, so this frame doesn't exist, because this frame, whatever we are trying to show, whatever we created here, it was when only available within this function. So when I come out of the function, this is not there. So old value is also there, only will be there. So that is what I'm trying to do. It's like what I'm trying to say is actually when I do call by value, and the whatever things you are done in the function is not reflecting the not reflecting into the variable what you are trying to show. That kind of functions are called, that kind of approach of calling the values are called call by value. So the other thing, so if you see here the other side, this is called call by reference. So by call by reference means like whatever is happening here will be reflecting the outside. So how should we do call by reference? So if you see the another example, the downside. So what I'm trying to do here actually, see, I'm trying to do, let me, okay. So I'm trying to create a list. So list with the values like this is LST is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. And now what I'm trying to say is actually, I'm trying to print this list and ID. So here I'm trying to call that function. So I'm trying to call that function val LST. So now what I will be doing? So now this function, what is this function? Val LST is actually, it will take this list. So lst dot append dot for. So I will explain this actually. Append is a function where you will be adding into the list. Like, so for example, what is that? There is, see, a list I will also cover actually. List is something, list is a structure where it can store multiple elements. So in the, it may be of different types. So in this case, like I'm trying to do 1, 2, 3 or something like 3, 4 kind of things. So on this list, actually, I can perform lot of operations. So one of operation is actually append. What is this append means? Actually, whatever the value you are passing here, this value will be added to the list. Means like it will be added at the last. So whatever the value you are saying, trying to say is I'm trying to add 5. So this 5 value will be added to the list. So initially list will be having only 4 elements. When I call this statement, so list dot append, so list dot append with the 5. So this 5 will be added to the list. So list will be modified. So this is what the statement is there. So what I'm trying to do in this function, so whatever the list I'm trying to pass on, and for that list I'm trying to add one element. So initially it will 1, 2, 3. So I'm trying to add element 4. So no means like I'm modifying this list actually. So something like this here actually, like if I'm passing the reference to the free cup, but when in that function I'm filling the cup. I'm filling the cup. Means like in this case, I'm adding the element. So now I wanted to see that like whether whatever I've added is that list, whatever modified inside that is still visible outside the function. Because if it is visible outside that function, means like this is call by reference. The way I am passing this parameter is called call by reference, not the call by value. If it is call by reference, then it will retain. If it is a call by value, it doesn't retain. So now if you see here the code, the second code, so I'm trying to do the same thing. So what happens actually? So initially like a list is something like this, and outside this, okay, let me print here. So initially and outside this also. So LST and ID. So now what I'm trying to do is actually, see, this is, let me see, print here. I am outside, print here. I am inside. So again, you say here, print here. I am outside again. So now what I'm trying to say actually, like, so initially like list is having only 3 elements, and I'm printing that actually I am outside and I'm printing the information about the list. Now I'm calling this function. So I'm calling this function. In this function, I'm adding one element and I'm printing that list reflected. Then I'm coming out of actually. So now I'm again come outside and then I wanted to print that list and that ID. So since if it is a call by reference, it will retain the same thing. So if you see here actually, earlier only 3 elements are there. So I'm outside, so only 3 elements were there and address of that. So now when I went inside the function, when I call that function, so I'm adding one element. So if you see here actually 1, 2, 3, 4 are there. So in that address is same. So this address and this address is same. Now I came out of that actually. This function is written. I came out of that. and I'm again printing it. Actually, if you see here, actually 1 2 3 4 and the same address, means like this approach is called call by reference. Means like whatever is modified, the value, whatever the argument you are passing, if function modifies that argument, and that argument modified value will be retained outside the function, then that is called call by reference. So I hope you understood what is the call by reference. Anybody has any question here? Call by reference? Understood the difference between call by value and call by reference? Any questions? So that is what is happening. So if you see this diagram, I am filling the cup so inside the function, but that is also reflected that whatever the modification done to the cup is visible outside the function. So that is a call by reference. Whatever the thing you are trying to modify in the function, if it is not visible outside the function, that is call by value. Is this clear? Is this clear? Okay. So now what kind of functions are called by, how should we know that like which is a call by from value and quick call by reference? So there is one difference is there compared to the other programming language and this Python programming language. So Python programming language, so everything, whatever the value you are passing by object reference. So we already discussed about what is the object. I said in the last class also, even the int is also an object. Integer variable is also an object. Even any variable also an object. So means like what is the object? Object will have an ID, identity. So it has what is called address where it will be stored, and also it will be having the type of the identifier and also the value of that, correct? So something that like, so in this case, when we say pass an object, so means like I am not passing the value of the variable, I'm passing the object by reference. Means like the object I am trying to pass as a reference only. Means like everything I am passing is object reference. So whole object is reference. Means like in the function, if you are modifying the object, so that modification will be visible outside the function. So means like I'm passing the object reference. Means like whatever the object I'm passing, the by reference I'm passing, not by value. So means like any modification you have done for that object, that will be reflected outside the function also. It's like that is visible outside the function. Then why the call by reference and call by value is there? Because in the function, in the Python programming, certain objects are immutable. Which objects are immutable? For those function, those objects, you can only call by reference value only. Because whenever I said, I explained even with using taken an int, even if you take an int is immutable. You modify the int, so that it won't be reflected. You can't modify the int. It will create the name. Please mute it. Please mute. So what I'm trying to say here is actually in Python, we always pass by object reference. So object reference means like when I say that like any object I'm trying to pass, I'm passing by reference of that object. Means like any modification you do for that object. So any modification you do that object, that will be reflected outside the function. It will be reflected outside the function. So means like I'm not doing, so means like why this call by values, why call by value is possible? Because some object which are immutable. So if immutable means like you can't change it actually. Means like what happens actually, if you can't modify that. If you are trying to modify, instead of you are modifying the original thing, so you will be creating new value and you will be using that and you will be discarding it. That is what I explained when I explained even how the int is immutable. So same thing, you can all the objects which are immutable are functions behaves as a call by values. They all the values, all the arguments of type object immutable or will behave something like a call by value. It's like which are those objects which are immutable? Int. If you pass a int value to the function, that will be call by reference. It will be considered as a call by value. If you call, if you pass a float variable or argument to the function, that will be call by value only. Complex number also call by value. String also means like all these immutable objects, if you pass to the function, and those all act as a call by value. And all the objects which are mutable, like list, dictionary, set byte array, all these will act as a call by reference. So that is the reason when you see that like actually the second I have used as a list, the first I have passed as an integer. So integer is immutable object, correct? Since int is immutable object, so it will always act as a call by value. List is a mutable object. So when you pass list to the function, that will also, or that will behave something similar to call by reference. So I hope we understood what is a call by value and call by reference. If you have any questions, let me know. Anybody has any questions? Call by value, call by reference. So in Python, we always pass value for pass object reference. So why then how it is behaving? And I hope you understood it. Okay, the next question is actually like I said, no. So function doesn't need a return. So it is optional. So if you are not doing passing something like a return, so it will be optional and it will something similar null. That we also see here actually. Like so, if you wanted to execute again, so you see that like this function when you are, we don't have return here, correct? No, so how it behaving it? Let me you again you wanted to see here. You see here actually. See return is value. Return value is null. So since there is no return, even though there is no return, so it will assume that there is a return and which is of none, which is of type none. None means it is something like a null or void or nil in other languages. So it is something like a none. So if you wanted to see that, like this is what like, so return value is none. So even though I am not having return here, so it assumes and it will return none, means like nothing. So I hope you understood this also. If any questions, let me know. Functions without return also possible. Any questions here? Okay. So next thing is actually default values for arguments. Means like, so what happens actually, like sometimes I, even though if I have around 10 arguments, like I don't need to pass all arguments. So that is not possible to pass arguments. Sometimes I can pass and sometimes I cannot pass. If I wanted to have that kind of function, how should we do? So please mute it. So how should I do actually? Like, so for example, default arguments, like, so what I can create actually, I can create a function with some parameters having a default values. What is that means actually? If you see here, actually my function, B is normal thing and C is equal to 3 and D is equal to hello. Means like for C default value is 3 and for D default value is hello. Means like somebody is not passing any value or any argument. So C will take by default 3. Somebody is not passing any value for D, by default it will take. So but if you are not passing value, take any default value. So that is how it indicates. So how should I call this function? So for example, if this is a function I have written, so I can call this function my same function name and the arguments. So I can pass first B. So B is there here, correct? Now 5 will be assigned to B and 3 is assigned to C and hello is assigned to D. So I can pass all values. See, even if it is a default assigned, I can still pass on the values. It may be same, it may be different. If I pass 4, then C will take 4. If I say high, so D will take high. But if you are not passing, so in this case, the second case, I am not passing the value for D. So D will take hello, because by default, if I am not passing anything, it will take this hello. And in the third function call, I am not passing C also. So C will take 3. So if you see that first function, what it does actually, like when I pass 5 and 3, so return is B plus 3. B plus C is actually 5 plus 3 is 8. In second also, I am passing these two, still B plus 2 must like 8. In third also, if I am passing only 5, but C default is 3, so 5 plus 3. So must like any of these function, all these functions, function calls will return value 8. So all these functions will return value 8. This is how it works. Seems like this gives a flexibility actually. Like sometimes like if you wanted to pass, if you want, say for example, by default this value is there, this value is there. But in this case, like if I wanted to send something different, then only you can pass, or else by default it will be there. Like so for example, if you are going for some kind of a movie ticket or something, that like somewhere else actually. So some scenarios, so usually like by default they will look for a certain kind of a ticket. Like so when you say that like ticket, so if you get into a bus stand bus actually, Volo bus or some city bus actually. If you say ticket, so by default it is assumed that like he will be taking the last what is called station or like stop. So by default he will assume actually, because he doesn't assume which stop. If you are not saying which stop, the conductor assumes actually something that like it will be always the last stop, something like that actually. So by default there will be some values like, so then you no need to say. So those kind of scenarios, like for example, if by default everybody is getting 4 lakh salary, so means like is on an average everybody is getting 4 lakh salary. So then if you also got the 4 lakhs, so no need to mention that like I got job, that's is fine, because by default everybody is getting 4 lakhs, so something like that actually. So default value, sometimes there will be always default values there, so then no need to mention that. So those kind of functions, if you wanted to write, then you can do this kind of approach. So if you wanted to see that like how it works, so let me show that actually. See, I said no, so you can call this. So you can even call the different way also. So you can also call a different way. So I see here I have said 3. I can also pass 5 actually. Like I can pass 5 and 5. So but it is not that always you should be passing same thing. So you can pass the different. Like if you wanted to see that like how the output will be there, all 3 output. So you can print all 3. Any questions? Anybody has any questions? Anything not understood? What is meant by default value for argument? Anybody not understood? So if you're, see, I can pass it. Is that is not mandatory that like you should be passing same value. See, usually if it is the same value, no need to pass. So if it is 3, then there is no point, because it is by default it will take 3. If anything other than 3, then only you have to pass that value, or else there is no meaning of passing the same value. But for the example case, just sample reason I'm mentioning here. If it is something different, then only you have to pass, because by default anyhow it will be taking those values. And another thing you should notice actually, see, all these default will be the last side. So all these undefault will be initially. So if you do other way around, so for example, if you do other way around, it will give a compilation error. Let me show that other thing syntax. So if instead of that, if you define b somewhere else, like one with some default with some other things is not default, then this function will give an compilation error, because all the undefined will be initially, and after that the last all elements. Like if one I am trying to define, then I cannot leave out this. So other things, like after I'm started defining some variable, I cannot put one variable without a definition by default values. So all the whichever the variable you are defining a default values, all should be one corner. So in between there should not be any other variable without a default value, because it will consider that as a compilation error, in syntax error. It will give a syntax error. This is one more thing you should be remembering. Any question here? Anybody has not understood the default values to argument? Okay. The next thing what I'm covering is actually keyword arguments. Like, so why we need this information is because, see, this will be very much difficult. No, so I don't know if 5 is allocated free or 3 or something that like. So order is like, because this one-to-one order is always there, but you have to remember like how I have organized the variable arguments in the function call. So this 5 will be like you have to remember, but I sometimes I don't want to remember all those things. Then you can pass the value by keyword names. Like for example, please mute. Okay. So what is that actually like? See, what I'm trying to do here is actually, so this is a def full xyz, full xyz. So instead of just passing 2 3 4, which this will assign like this. If I pass 2 3 4, 2 will be assigned to x, 3 is assigned to y, 4 is assigned to z. But this is the normal way, but I don't want, I wanted pass the values using the keywords. What is the keywords? This x. So whatever this x is one argument, correct? So x is equal to 3. So no, this is not the first value, so it will be later. No, So z is equal to 4, y is equal to 2. So it's like by doing this actually, by by calling something like this, what I was trying to, I can allocate the values in any order. So I can pass the values in any order. So this gives much more comfortable for me to say that like which values assigned, because in this time, so accidentally you maybe you forgot actually like whether I would given argument z y x or x y z. Simply you are giving, then instead of like then later on while debugging, you know, okay, the wrong value passed to x or wrong value passed to z. Instead of that way, this is much more easier, because so I remember that like I wanted to pass 4 to z, 2 to y, and 3 to x actually. So then this kind of passing values are called keyword arguments actually. This is called keyword arguments. Means like you are passing the values using the keywords. What is that keyword? Keyword is the name of not that keyword I'm saying. This here the keyword is actually name of the arguments. So you're using the name of the argument to pass the value for that argument. So using the name of the argument, this is another facility of the Python programming language. Any question here? Any questions who has not understood here? Okay, so if you see this one and this, you see second one. So I'm passing z is equal to something, y is equal to something. So and here I'm not mentioning. So if I'm not mentioning here, it's like this is number one, number in first argument value. So it will always assign to the first value argument value. That is how this mapping will happen. So that you should be remembering. And you can also mix the default thing and this also. So in this case, like I have see here, I'm defining default values, and also you can do. So then since these are all defined, I'm just say z is equal to something. So the combination of a default and keyword argument is also possible. If you have any questions, let me know. So if you want to see that like how exactly it works, so let me explain that. See in this case like xyz, so I'm trying to, what is I'm trying to do is like 2 into x, 4 into 5 and something. So now if I pass that actually, so I will be, what I'm trying to do is actually whatever the value I'm passing for x, 2 into x is actually 4, and 4 into y, so y whatever the value passing 3 into 4 is 12, and 8 into z, what is the value I'm passing? 4 into 8 is equal to 30. So this is what is getting. So different value in this case, like so that is same thing what I'm trying to show here. So since if all are default values there, even if I'm not passing anything, because all has a default value, so you'll get the result here, because nothing you are passing, because by default value is already there. Or you can pass one value and others will take default value. So this is how combination of this default and keyword argument is possible. Any questions here? Anybody has not understood anything here? Okay. So moving on, so we will start covering something called functional overloading. So if you are from C++ kind of background, so you know what is meant by functional overloading. What exactly the functional overloading? So means like overloading is actually like something that like I'm overloading, say overloading the lift means like you are what is the limited capacity, beyond that you are trying to do. So when you are trying to fill or add the people in the lift. So when I say function overloading, means like one function does one kind of operation, correct? So means like when I say functional overloading, means like same function name I am repetitively using for multiple purpose. Like for example, if I'm trying to say that like function name is a, and I'm using to do something that like addition of two numbers, and same a I'm using to subtraction of two numbers. So and same function I'm trying to use something that like multiplication of the number. It's like I'm overloading that function, like so I'm overloading. No, not that way actually. I'm trying to say if function a I am trying to pass certain values, so or do perform certain kind of activities, and same function I'm trying to pass certain values and try to perform operations, and same function name I'm using. So how should I difference? How should I know that like I'm calling this function a first one or second one or third one? Because so both are of same name, correct? So both are of same name. I'm overloaded the function with the same name. So how should I know that, like when I'm trying to call, whether, because all names are same, correct? How should I know that, like I'm trying to call this function or I'm calling this function? Because this function does something different, this function does something different, this function does something different in terms of lot of operators. Like for example, if you take this example here, so what I'm trying to do is actually there is a function called display for display, and it will take var1 and var2, and there is another same function name is same, correct? So display, it is taking var, and there is another function which will take var, but the difference is actually it will take int var. Here it will take double var. So this is C++, no? So int double var there in C++. So if you see, actually all three function names are same. So now how should I know that, like when I call display with a, is whether this, because this is how I'm overloading the function. So in C++, how it does actually, it depends on the number of arguments and type of the arguments. It's like what is the argument type. So if I pass the int display with a is of int, then this function will be called, because this is a function. Okay, function name is matching plus number of arguments is matching. This here also one, here also one, but these two for the first statement, display name will be all three matching. But if you see that, like number of arguments is only one, only two will be matching. This display and this display, only two will be matching. But if you see the type of the variable is int, so this is not matching actually, only this is matching. So it's like that way this display a, when I'm trying to call this one, actually this function is called. So this function is called and this will execute. When I say display b, so same thing, because this b is a double, here it is double, this doesn't match, so this will be called. So when I call two values, this will be called. It's like this kind of approach is called functional overloading. It's like I am overloading the function name for multiple operations, different kind of operations, and how the compiler or interpreter or like somebody who is translating this high level to all things will be understood actually is by name is same, but number of arguments and type of argument based on that it will differentiate which function is called. So whether I have to call this function or this function, because this kind of approach is called functional overloading. So functional overloading is like I am reusing that function for multiple different purposes. So that is called functional overloading. But in Python, functional overloading is not supported, because Python doesn't allow this actually. Actually, this approach is possible only the place all the programming languages which identify functions using its name and its arguments. Not because in Python function names are identified by only function names, not by its arguments actually. So but here that's not possible by that is not possible by possible in Python. So if I do same thing here, so it will give an error. So what will happen actually? So it won't give the error. Like let me show you here actually. It will take whatever is the last one. So for example, I have defined a my function with xy, and I have defined my function one with abc. Now when I do ABC, so what happens when I call this my function 456? So it will understand only this is the last one. The functional overloading is not possible. It will rewrite and whichever the last one will be remembering. So that is how is possible in the Python. Anybody has not understood what is going to functional overloading and is it supported or not supported? Anybody has not understood? Let me know. So this is all about the functions. This is all about the functions. Moving on to, I said in the first class actually, like Python is supports multiple programming paradigms. Means like it supports the procedural. It is a procedural programming language. It is object-oriented programming language. It also functional-oriented functional programming languages. So that I said. So when I said function procedural programming language, so the defining function is a procedural. Procedure means like you should have multiple functions only, correct? So you can use this def and procedure. You can create a procedural programs also using Python. So using the def. So now we also wanted to cover something like functional programming paradigm, how it supports. So we will cover few of the things which makes the Python programming as a functional program program. So that will cover one by one. So what is that actually in Python? What we can say is actually functions are first class object. What is that actually? First class object means like we can do something like arguments to a functions. Like, so what we can do is actually arguments to functions. Like, so we can pass this function as argument to a function. Means like, say for example, if I'm trying to say I have created a function f1. So this function 1 I can also pass argument to, like this is function 2. In that function 2, one of the argument is function name. So that is possible in Python. So how should I do? So if you see here actually def square x, and this is a function, and what it does actually, whatever the value you are trying to, they're squaring it and returning. And if you see another function applier q, so q comma x, so q comma x, and it is returning. So for while calling this applier, so if you see here actually what I'm trying to pass, I'm trying passing an argument. What is that argument? I am trying passing is actually function name. So I'm passing the function name to that actually. So I'm passing this function name to another function. So this is how I'm trying to, this is called passing a function as argument to another function. So if you do that actually, like what happens actually, so how exactly it will execute? So first this square will take this 7 actually, then whatever the way it has done. So what actually, like you are passing this function. So if you come here, so this square will come here. So what is you are trying to do? So this q is this square. So for this square, what is the next value? This x is 7, this is 7. So this 7 will be passed here. So this square function, this what this square function does actually, 7 into 7. So means like how exactly it is executed. So first you are trying to, what is that function name? Applier. So you are passing that, like I'll say that like applier. So applier, you are trying to pass a square function and 7. So what exactly go, if you go this the function applier there here, in that applier function you are passing that 7 and this one. So within that, what you are trying to do is actually you are calling s and 7. So means like, so you are passing here s and you are passing 7, and in that function this is s and 7, and s is another function, correct? So it will take x value, and what it does actually, x into x. So x into x actually it is trying to do, means like for this function you are calling here, from this function you are calling this function and passing 7 into 7. So what it actually 49, and then 49 it is returning here. So that is how it is happening. It's like this is possible in Python. If anybody is not understood, let me know. See, I am passing an function name as argument to another function. This is one thing. The second thing actually, return value of a function means like you can pass a function as a return value of a function. So other thing is actually I can pass a function So what is actually is happening is actually in this case. So for example, what I'm trying to is actually I'm trying to define an outer function. This is outer function, and there is a my function. This is my function. So now in this one, I'm trying to return. What I'm trying to do actually, I'm trying to return the outer. So this will return something that like outer, means like this will return this one. So what I'm trying to do, this function, I'm assigning a variable. So variable is equal to x, and this is my function. I'm trying to assign this actually. So this is like I'm trying to say this variable will be assigned this function, and this function is actually returning this function. It's like this will return this function, this will return this function. It's like it is something that like x you are trying to say, but x is indirectly taking the function name of this function. It's like since this output for my function, no, so this my function, even you are trying to assign to this variable will be will be behaving something that, like, because this function, my function is returning this outer, no, so this will behave as this is a call to the outer function. So what happens, like, next, whenever you use this output variable with the passing value, means like this output function is something that like alias name for this outer. If you know that, like Linux, something that like alias name is like, so for example, if you are a Satish, so your alias name is actually Sat, so it's like a short name. So this also points to the same thing. So something similar to that is happening. It's like when you say outer, and if you are defining and another my function, you are returning that actually. So means this outer. So now when I assigned something like x is equal to my function, means like this function. So since this is returning this function, this x is becoming alias for this outer function. So later on, whenever you are trying to use this x and pass in, actually you are indirectly calling the outer function, another function which is returned by the previous function. So that is also possible in Python. So anybody is not understood, it is something called, if you know how to alias function, means like, so Satish is one name, normal name, and Sat is also another name. Means like if I call the Sat, this also is pointing to the same thing. So like something like that actually. Means like another function which is returning this function, if you use this function to allocate a variable, means like this is something that like I'm just using to create a alias for a function. I'm using this function to create an alias for a function which is returned by this function. So for example, I'm creating a y function to create a alias of x function. So just I'm using y function to create a alias for x function. So if you know that actually, like if you wanted to, still if confused, like let me explain that actually how it works. So this is how I'm trying to create, correct? So I'm trying to create output is equal to x and returning. So now I'm trying to create here, I'm trying to create alias function here because my function is just returning. So it is something that like this function statement is something similar, that this will be it will be pointing, so this will be pointing to the function outer. So this will be create a alias link to function outer. So this will create alias link to something similar to that. Like it's like this intention for this is actually just create a output variable as alias to the function outer. So later on, whenever we are using this variable name, so it is as good as I'm calling this function. And but actually how it works, if you wanted to see, let me show that result also visually, if you wanted to see how exactly it works. So if you see here, actually I have created outer function. So this outer function, this is a function I have created, this is object outer with the which will take x. So now what I'm trying to create a my function. So I have created this is my function, there is my function. So now what I'm trying to do, output function is equal to my function. Now you see here, actually this is my variable is created. So now what happens, now I'm trying to allocate. So what I'm trying to allocate this output function. So whatever I'm saying is that like output function is something that like it is happening. Like so when I call this function, it goes here and it will return. So return means like what is the return? So it will return the outer. So after that, what happens actually? This output function is linking to the, this is called alias link is created. So this output becomes an object and it will link to the outer function. The alias link is created. Next time, whenever using that output thing, it is as good as like you are calling that outer only. So if you see here, actually it is calling that outer, and that is how this is executing. This shows visually how this works. If you have any questions, let me know. So I hope you understood that, correct? So function returning uh, function name. Any questions? Anybody has any questions? Is not understood, anybody is not understood argument to function, return value to of a function? So how exactly that alias link is created? Okay. The next two more thing we'll discuss actually. Assign to a variable. So assign to a variable means like, so now what is that actually defined is I have created a function called square. I know y is equal to square. So means like I'm assigning. So this is direct aliasing. So this is a direct aliasing. So you wanted to see the output also, you can see that like visually how it works instead of me explaining again. So let me show here. So how this alias link is created, you can visually you can see that actually. So now alias link is created. So this is a direct kind of way. So I'm directly assigning, alias link is directly created. So in a previous one, I am using another function to create a alias link. So that is the only difference. So that is fine. Then another thing is actually like you can pass a function to a tuple or list. Like since I not explain the tuple and list, actually like I will try to show with using a list. So what is that means actually? See, usually like in array or something that like you it will have a list of elements. So list of kind of elements. But in Python also like if you can also a list of functions also, function calls. So means like one element is one function call, pointer to one function, another variable is another. So something like that also you can do. So I'm just saying about list only. Other it also supports other kind of collections. So it also supports other kind of collections that which I will be covering in the next few sessions actually. Like so see currently like we are only 5 days cover, no? So another 5 days are there. Now we will be covering this tuple list and everything in the next 5 days actually. So then you will be knowing, but by just I'm trying to explain using one list. So what I'm trying to create actually, I'm creating a function. So it's like I'm trying to make these functions are part of a list. It's like list of a functions. What I'm trying to say is list of a functions. It's like this is not list of an element, but list of a functions. So list of a multiple functions. So that is also possible in Python actually. Like so that is also possible, much more easier way. So how should like if you wanted to, you don't understand this, let me show this actually. So what I have tried to create it, I have created a square function. So and square means like x into x, correct? So I have created another function called cube. So x cube. So I also created another function called quad, x is quad. So now I have created a list. In this list, I am not put an element 1 2 3 something that like I'm not putting even string also. I'm putting function name. So first element is function name of first function, square function. Second is function cube functions. Third is quad functions. So it's like list is function names. So how should I call now? So if you see here actually, this is I will cover in later on in list actually. If we access the first element, so list in bracket I'm trying to put x, means like so I am here I'm accessing the first function because first function is square. So and whatever the value I'm passing is I'm passing to the that specific function. So second thing, if you see actually I'm accessing the second element. What is that second element? Is choose function. For that I'm passing value 5. So then this will pass value to 5. So if you and the third element, if I have to access, then that is a quad. So list in 2 I will be accessing quad and I'm passing that value. So if you want to see that like how this exactly works visually, you can go and see here. Let me do that also. If you see here actually how this works. So now the square is created, function is created, then cube function is created. Now if you say that like quad function is created, now I have created a list. So list, so now what I'm saying in list, this function name is created. So automatically the alias links are created. So if you see here actually, now I'm accessing this one. What I'm accessing the first one. So I'm accessing this first is actually this one, and then I pass the value 5, then it is going there. So that is how it is executing. So it is returned. So now it's the second thing I am trying to call. One means like this link. So it is trying to that link. So that is how it is happening. So if you still not confused, like let me do other way around also. So what you can do is actually this is also like x is equal to, then I will say x, then so y is equal to y is equal to, and then I will say y. So then z is equal to z. So now if you try to execute it, actually now it will be much more easier to understand how this works. Now what happening? I'm created X and then this link, because this link is in here. So now I'm calling that function. So this is how pretty easy to understand how this you can call create a functions like list or tuple or collections with multiple functions. So this is how visually it shows. So any questions here? Any questions here? So I think it is time up actually, like we can start taking exam. So we will cover this in the next class. So Sangmesh, can you start quiz?
Yes, yes, yes.
So before he starts, if you have any questions, let me know. You people have any questions? Are you able to follow me? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Sangmesh should take the quiz. So other thing, whatever is left out, we will cover in Monday. Okay, and any questions comes from these things, no, you just ignore it. Actually, we'll cover in the Monday. Fine, thank you. Sangmesh, you start. Okay. So this is a link for the quiz. So you start. Sangmesh, you can start sharing your screen. I will stop the screen, my screen. Hello. Segments is it done?
Still they are doing it.
Okay. We will review the questions actually. So we'll review the questions which are most of the people done wrong. So we'll review those questions.
Okay. And I think I'll also off because later on 4 subjects will be more difficult.
So show me the questions which are more oftenly made wrong. So we'll go wrong, other way around. So 2 players. Okay, no, okay. This is simple. Okay, leave it actually. Which are the mostly done wrong? Go to the questions which are mostly done by wrong. Next. 6 player are done. Okay. Why this was wrong? So power is equal to 2, x is equal to, which of the following is true? So power by default is equal to 2 and x. So what will happen actually? So the square 2 will be result in a value of 5. The code above will result in a syntax error. Why it will be syntax error? Because I said no, all default value will be after the variables. Like, so if you see here, actually power is equal to assigned to 2, but x is something not assigned anything. So this has to come here. Then all the default values variable assigning default values will be after following that actually. So that is the reason the syntax error will be there. Go to the next one. And okay, so this is about, I said no, so integer is immutable. So if it is integer is immutable means like whatever you are re-changing or reassigning in the function is not reflected outside the function. So integer is an object which is of immutable. So if you pass immutable objects, then it looks as a call by value. So means call by value means like whatever changes you have done is not reflected here. So age will have the old value only. Go to the next one. So default calculus square number. Okay, so this okay, the numbers 1 2 3 4 actually, like, okay, you can okay, so this you can leave it actually. This is about the map function. So map function, so map, whenever I cover, I will cover that actually. This is not covered here. Map function, lambda function also not covered, so we'll cover in the next session. So actually I was supposed to complete those thing in this one is covered in the last. So why this mistake again? See, when I say print 3.2 f means like before decimal point 3 LV, so means like only 1 2 are there, so all 12 will be printed, but after decimal point only 2. So after 2 means like only 2 3 4, but after that like there's 5 is there, 5, because of that it truncates, so 35. So that is what is the answer actually. So this is what is the answer. So input, so whenever we say input, so always input will consider any output as a string only. So I think a lot of people done, but still okay, fine. Next. It's done.
Yeah, it's done.
Okay, thank you. So Shivam Gupta, what is the question? Anybody has any question?